William Huey Jensen versus Kenji Egashira. Kenji's on the colorless ramp deck. Huey on the bottom part of your screen is on Dimir control. He said he really just wanted to play Torrential Gearhulk, and he has done so. Now, as we come in, we're coming into game number 2, and this is with Jensen up a game. You know, Dimir control does have a lot of tools against the ramp deck where you can often ignore what they do from the ramp perspective and focus on the payoffs.
Like if you were to pick the one deck William Jensen probably wanted to play against, it was this deck, right?
Yeah.
This is a deck that's just got a ton of counter spells, and the colorless ramp deck is a deck that basically just has a handful of relevant cards that you want to counter. So and the fact that Huey was able to win game 1 where he's got a ton of removal spells that don't even do anything is also huge, because after sideboard, all of a sudden all of these fatal pushes just become more counter spells, more card draw effects. So I think Kenji is looking to be in a really bad position here, at least this matchup.
Yeah, it's interesting because normally, you know, you'd look at each of these cards and think, oh no, they've got a Maze Mind Tome, I'll have to do something about that. And then, you know, they're going to play, you know, whatever, Hedron Archive, and that's another couple of cards I have to do something. You don't. You can just do something about the payoffs. Now, the one really annoying one, of course, is Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, because that is a cast trigger. But usually William Huey Jensen just has lands, and it's like, okay, fine, have a couple. Uh-oh, there's a Field of Ruin. Paul, I need to take a quick look at Kenji's list, but the list that I was testing while prepping for the event didn't have any basics in it at all.
Well, the thing is, Field of Ruin is just not a card that's very commonly played at all, right? But in this particular matchup, yeah, Kenji Egashira doesn't have a waste in his deck or anything like that. So this Field of Ruin is just going to kill one of Kenji's lands.
It's
straight
so
up.
Brutal.
But I mean, it's better than a strip mine here, right? It's just kill your land, but I get my land back.
That's right.
Wow.
I get some and you get nothing. Huey has 2 copies of Field of Ruin in the deck, but that is just such a beating. And Kenji's got to be feeling bad about that. That was Inventor's Fair going to the graveyard for him as he plays Cascading Cataracts, which is normally a card that you'll find him searching up with Golos.
Yeah, Cascading Cataracts is almost always the card you fetch with the Golos. Kenji Egashira is playing 2 copies of Golos Tireless Pilgrim in his deck. And basically what that allows you to do is actually activate the Golos, because this is a deck with all colorless sources of mana, but the single Cascading Cataracts means that now you have the ability to basically activate Golos, which is extremely powerful. And in this deck, you're basically just looking to play a bunch of utility lands that tap for colorless mana, and Cascading Cataracts is basically the perfect card. I would say that I get this land 70% of the time when I cast Golos.
Right. Same. Just makes it so that you have to kill Golos. Now, interestingly there, Kenji had an option for a Hedron Archive or a Karn the Great Creator. Decided to choose neither, just leaning on Maze Mind Tome and passing the turn back rather than playing into a counter spell. Of course, Narset Parter of Veils is going to hit the battlefield here as well. Kenji can't do anything about it. But thankfully for him, the way that he's drawing cards with Maze Mind Tome lets him space it out where he can draw on Huey's turn and not, you know, fall prey to the static ability there.
Yeah, and now Kenji actually has a window here to resolve something. He can play around Censor and successfully resolve one of his 4 mana cards. He can either run out the Karn here or just run out the Hedron Archive for additional mana. He could try to go for the Forsaken Monument, however, that plays into Censor.
And there we go. Hedron Archive on the battlefield. Well played there by Kenji as we see the Censor in hand, and he did as well from William Huey Jensen off of the Narset. So that's going to lead Huey to just go ahead and cycle it. Now, he also had another Censor in his hand there that Kenji had played around the turn prior. Again, well played by Kenji. Narset's going to see a Hieroglyphic Illumination Censor and Mind Stone off the second -2 here for Jensen, who has the clean 7 cards in hand going up to 8 here, and then a land drop to come. One thing to remember as well, Paul, that maybe you can explain for the viewers is, you know, Karn the Great Creator in Kenji's deck is very much a silver bullet style card as the sideboard is built around it, basically.
Yeah, the entire sideboard are just basically targets for Karn the Great Creator. The deck has 8 2-mana rocks that help you cast that Karn on turn 3, which is extremely important. And once you do, you get to get some of the most impactful sideboard cards available in Standard. Grafdigger's Cage is a card that we've seen people play in the main deck because how powerful it is against some of the top strategies, shutting down Uro and shutting down various escape cards and Cauldron Familiar out of the sacrifice deck. So that's really, really powerful. Additionally, you can use it to find ways to draw cards in Mystic Sanctuary, Mystic Forge. And also some decks play Mazemind Tome in their sideboard. If you need ways to kind of get additional mana sources, you can also search for Golos to get that Cascading Cataracts to kind of accelerate your game plan, allow you to cast your Ugin to Spirit Dragons ahead of time, and also try to get card advantage from that Golos Childless Pilgrim.
That's right. Lots of options once you get rolling with your Karn. Now we see Kenji kind of play a feeler here. He says, how about another Hedron Archive? Now he's going to go for Karn the Great Creator after that archive has resolved. And it looks like we're going to see Commit targeting that Karn.
The combo. We're going to see the combo here.
Right. So this is a big piece of the puzzle here for Jensen on why he wanted to play this deck in particular. So if you look, you see Narset Parter Veils on the battlefield. That says you can only draw one. You can't draw additional cards each turn. There's a Torrential Gearhulk in hand now, Paul, and we see Commit to Memory in the graveyard. Talk us through how this works.
So first, I was just going to say, this is great. He can just cast Memory, and what Memory does is basically everybody shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library and draw 7 cards. However, with Narset Static, if you cast Memory, only you get to draw those 7 cards. Your opponent discards their entire hand, and guess what? They don't get to draw any extra cards.
That's right. And we're going to see it here on the draw step from William Huey Jensen. Going for max value, you can target Memory because technically it's an instant because of Commit and cast it. And there you go. How about I get 7 and you get nothing?
Yeah, and he drew that Gearhulk off the top. He was perfectly fine probably just casting a Memory there. But because he drew the Gearhulk, now he's got a clock on top of, basically just destroying all of Kenji's hand.
Disgusting. Kenji has been reduced to casting Giganta the Wellspring as a 5/5 here. Nothing but depression here on Kenji's side. William Jensen, by the way, up a game at this point as well. And this one is going to be very difficult to win. Now, interestingly, Jensen is a little Gearhulk flooded here. There's nothing in the graveyard anymore. He does still have the Narset out. But, I'm looking for Kenji to top deck something like an Ulamog at this point, and it may even get through.
Yeah, that is basically the card that Kenji needs. So he actually has to be kind of careful in terms of whether or not he wants to actually choose to sacrifice those Hedron Archives to try to find answers, because it's very likely that Huey has counter magic. So one of the cards that might get you back into this game is by just hard casting Ulamog. So you're going to try to make sure that you have those 10 mana sources. But at this point, I think Huey he's just way too far ahead on cards here. And I don't even think an Ulamog here will be enough to get him back into this.
Yeah, he would have to resolve it and have it stay on the battlefield. Then it would probably be decent. It's usually just a couple of attacks against a control deck like this to get the job done. But boy, right now, the clock is very real here on Kenji as well. And he may have to start cracking these Hedron Archives for a card. Like, it gets depressing really quickly. Right. And that's what he's going to have to do here. 1 card, thank you. And there's a Guardian Idol into hand here for Egashira.
Yeah, because...
Meanwhile, yeah, go ahead.
Because Mystical Dispute will counter the Ulamog. So the only thing it would do is get basically the 2 Gearhulks off the battlefield, or potentially Gearhulk plus the search for Azcanta.
Yeah, so that's not going to be enough. I mean, one of the things that you could consider, right, of course, is can I take away Huey's ability to win the game via Ulamog, right? Like if I kill all the Gearhulks, what's left? And it turns out, what did he have? There was a Planeswalker or something he's got that he can use to win the game. I can't remember what it was, but he does have a few other ways to win.
And I think right now we're going to see in Ifnir Deadlands activation, which I think I've never done when I've been playing this deck, or it's very rare. but he's using it to shrink down the Gear Hulk so that he can attack with the Giganta and basically force a chump block here on the Torrential Gear Hulk, or
another
potentially kill Narset. Yeah.
Right. The problem is Jensen has, like, he can just cast a Gear Hulk.
Yeah, I think he's looking at casting Cling to Dust. No, he doesn't have mana to cast Cling to Dust and play the Gear Hulk. So he could, given that Kenji only just has the 2 colorless mana up, just run out Gear Hulk and just try to get aggressive and put Kenji on a 2-turn clock, which is actually not a terrible idea, right? You
also,
play out the Gear Hulk.
Gigantha.
Right. You play out the Gear Hulk, block the Giganta, attack for 13, and that's game.
Yeah, that does seem pretty decent here. Here comes Guardian Idol on an empty-handed Kenji Egashira. This has been an absolute destruction at the hands of William Huey Jensen. And there's the neutralize, which will basically lock the thing up, as now he has a hard counter in hand. Kenji really stifled on cards. This is the 3rd copy of Narset to hit the battlefield this game. And she's really dominated, not only keeping the cards flowing into hand here for Jensen, but also enabling that devastating combo. And we're going to see a GG here from Kenji Egashira as he's going to scoop it up and give the win in round number 1 to William Huey Jensen, 2-0.